name is Catherine Bennett, and this is Scroll Sessions.
Catherine, it's so good to have you on the podcast today.
I have been waiting for this day.
It has been a long time coming.
After quite the mess up for our first setup, and thank you for the patience. We're glad to have you here today. So, you're a working mom of 3, right?
I am.
And you're the current marketing director at Impact Utah.
Yep.
And then you also do backpack marketing.
Yes,
right?
that's been a thing for sure.
Yeah, it's been a thing.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are today, how you kind of got to where you're at.
Yeah,
give us the background.
It's
on Catherine.
a twisty path for sure. I started actually like a journalism and English major. I knew from the time I was little. I was
Where
at? Utah State.
Okay.
So I grew up in Reno. And I knew when I was younger that writing came really naturally to me. I was in programs. People put me into programs because they were like, oh, this is a little bit better than other kids your age. So I would spend Fridays writing with some other geeky kids.
I love that. That's awesome.
But I was like, what do I do with this, right? I have no clue what to do, Every road from here leads to poverty.
In writing.
But it's such a good skill, though.
It's such a good skill. Yeah. I just had no clue what to do with it. So I went to Utah State. Was like, well, we'll just dual major then because I don't know what I'm doing. Print journalism, it was dying. A very it's still
very slow.
Yeah, and how are newspapers even a thing at all? But I was like, we're going to go all in. I'm going to do the newspaper thing in college. My senior year, I was the editor-in-chief of the newspaper, and I was doing English, writing these giant nonfiction essays. And I graduated, and I was like, well, shoot, that was fun, but what do we do? What do we do now? And I was like, not doing journalism. I was like, I'm not the bad guy. I'm not that person. I don't need to establish justice. I had people in college. There was a lady that called me and was like, you ruined my son's life. Because he stole $10,000 worth of textbooks or something. And she was like, and I'm like, well, I don't need that. You know?
And you wrote an article on it?
Yeah. I mean, that
college.
was, I wrote a lot of articles like that, and I won awards for some of them and stuff, but it was ballsy, right?
Yeah, that is.
Journalists are ballsy, and they're kind of no, you deserve, there's just a certain personality. I'm like, I kind of am between this, I love to talk to people and interview people. I love the stories, but I also love the teaching. So I was like, maybe I'll just keep going to school and I'll be an English professor. Maybe that's the route. And I somehow one day was just looking at job postings and I was like, oh, a communications manager. Had no clue what that meant.
But I still don't understand what that means.
I don't think anyone does. It's the most broad.
And it's the most, it's the biggest, more or less, thing you can take in college now. It's the most enrolled students at most colleges.
But this was a job majors for a communication manager.
So what it actually was a marketing communication. So I ended up in a corporate marketing team doing all the email marketing, blogs, events. I was doing all the presentations for the CEOs when they were traveling. So I got to travel to Europe and stuff. It was
oh, that's cool.
Wow, it found me. This is it.
Where in Europe did you go?
I've been to a couple places, but that job specifically, I went to Barcelona and Rome.
How cool is that?
That's awesome.
Writing English,
especially right.
Well, no, it was. I was on a marketing. Yeah.
Oh, you were.
I sold myself as I was an English major, but this newspaper gig I had, I sold myself in marketing because I was like, I'm really good with people. I'm really good with people. I'm a really solid writer. I'm really have really attention to details there. I had the whole skill set that you need to excel in a marketing department.
Yeah.
But except for data, the stuff you learn in business school. But my job didn't really need that. I just need to be like, oh, are people looking at this? Okay, well, if we're not, let's cut it. So it was kind of an intro to that.
She had all this solid, intangible stuff. That's super important.
And I was a wicked project manager. I didn't let stuff fall through the cracks. Nothing fell through the cracks, and I just, So
who is this company?
It's we love them so much. It was an MLM, but
I love it.
But it was such a cool and good experience, and my team was really awesome. They were really cool people. Cool. But from there, I I was having trouble having kids. It was not happening easily for me. And a couple years in, kind of abandoned ship on that and started to go to grad school. I was like, I got to focus on something else. This is eating me up. And I, 2 months in, got pregnant. I was like,
of course,
I guess we're doing grad school then.
Yeah.
But through that, it was just messy, right? Like you're trying to adjust to parenthood.
Yeah.
And, you know, had grad school and and I had a full-time job and really like the corporate world just felt like kind of like spat me out. It was like,
did you always want to be a full-time like careerist?
No, I kind of was just riding the waves, honestly. But it's one of those things where the more it unfolded, I was like, yeah, this is me, you know?
Yeah, it felt
because
right.
I grew up with a mom that was at home with the 5 kids, and she was awesome. She's such a smart lady. She's such a cool lady. So like, you know what you know, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I wasn't really sure, like what, it's not, I don't think until you have kids that you really can know that for yourself. Some people dream of that their whole life. I don't know that I've ever been like, oh, I want to work with kids. Like I love kids. I love my kids and I love other people's kids. But I'm like, I look at my nannies and I'm like, wow, I'm not like you. You know, you're coming up with all these crazy ideas and they're so great. And they like love being there with them and like watching them and that necessarily isn't me. I love my kids are amazing, but the more I got into my career, I'm like, this is part of me. Like, this is how can I give up these talents that I have like innately that are like just so well implemented in this way.
Yeah, totally.
And just be like, no, I'm walking away from that because I'm like they're integral to me.
And I think especially in Utah, like if you grew up here, it's kind of like it's like innate in our culture, right? To have women more or less stay home. So what's your opinion on that? And where do you feel like you fit there?
Yeah, I've had some interesting conversations even lately where like I had a conversation with my grandpa, my grandfather a couple of weeks ago. He was kind of like, I just don't know how you do it because it's like
because they're not used to it.
Yeah, it's like what are we what are we missing here maybe, or can you really, I guess from like a religious standpoint, how does that, what I think that was his question, like how is this possible, right? Like, and it just is, right? Like you just you let go of stuff that might seem like it matters and doesn't really matter. I'm like, I always have dishes in my sink, like just, I just say, hey, that's not a priority and we're not doing that. Or, so.
I think that's so, well, honestly, I feel like that's so real life. Like I feel like there's a lot of propped upness and perfectness, especially amongst mothers, and especially here for whatever reason, right? I mean, I think we all have ideas about why that is, but I think I'm glad you're so like open about it, because I think a lot of people aren't, and then they like harbor it or hold it, and then have regrets later.
Yeah, and to be fair, I had my business backpack was my cushion. It was like my transition period where I had the time and the kind of I don't want to say flexibility, but to really test that out. And so I had I started that so I could have the flexibility as I was, bringing kids into the world. And, it was honestly like it comes with its own hardships, right? Like owning a business is rough business. Like it's rough stuff. And so you kind of just you gotta pick and choose, right? Like, so I chose, okay, I'm figuring out motherhood. This is the chunk of hours I want with my kids. I want them first thing in the morning. Then I'll stay up till 1 a.m. Like I'll do that because I want to. They're little. I got a 2-year-old and a newborn at one point, and I was starting my business, and I was the only income. It was heavy. It was really heavy.
Oh my gosh.
But I guess I just learned through that, like I can do a lot. Like I'm pretty tough. I can work really hard. But yeah, that my business was this transition where now I'm like, I'm okay. Like I have 3 kids. They're okay. Like they're good. I needed like to warm up to it. It wasn't just like, we're good. Like I had to test it out. And so my business gave me that.
What are your kids' ages?
6, 4, and 1.
Okay.
Oh, nice. So the 2 are pretty close together. That was the real difficult.
Yeah, they're like a little over 2 years. And so my husband, he was super unhappy in his career path. He worked at Hill in finance. So he's a really smart guy. So I think
one of my best friends does that.
No way.
But he's moving to Germany. He got sick of it here. And now he's doing it in Europe.
In Germany.
I think my husband had a friend that did that too, in Germany too. But he just, it kind of boxes you in how you think when you do government jobs. It's like, this is the task. You can't go outside of that. And he's like, I mean, he's a problem solving guy. So he went and he was really unhappy. And so I was like, well, I got this business thing I'm trying, like, let's see how it goes. Yeah. And so there was actually this really cool co-working space. It was only open for a year, but it was for moms specifically. There was like a little daycare in it, and it failed. Like there weren't enough people that used it, but I got to use it, and
we got to start that back up.
Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty cool. Especially,
that's so cool.
It was
in
really cool. No, it was right above like Caputo's in Salt Lake.
Okay, in Salt Lake.
It was like right by 400. So it saved me because we couldn't afford childcare. I had to bring money in. And so I would I paid like, it was like a stretch. I was like, I think I paid like $1,700 for like my first business coach or something to help me get my head on straight. And that felt like so much, right? And now it's like, that's like pennies.
Well, yeah,
just as far as business coaches go, you know?
Yeah.
But it was a huge stretch for me. Like it hurt me. And then I paid, I think like $2,000 to have access to this co-working space for the whole year. And that hurt me too. It just felt, the risks, the early risks, right? Like you guys know.
Totally.
But it was everything that I could take this 3-month-old and a 2.5-year-old with me. And they were always with me and I could build this business with them like
on your arm.
Yeah.
That's
right
massive.
There.
You know what?
It was huge.
And I know there's some places in Utah County that do build that in. I think Qualtrics and I think Podium both have programs like that to watch kids.
Amazing.
Which is so great. You know what? Speaking of business expenses, when we first started our company, we bought a couch from Smith's Marketplace
that we still have.
Smith's Marketplace.
That we still have. We literally had like it was like $800 or $900 in our account or something like that. We literally spent more than half of what we had on
the couch.
You guys loved that couch.
Really, I don't know why we bought it, but it's sitting in my office today as a reminder of like,
trophy,
things are.
It's like the dollar on the wall.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It was a big stretch to be like, okay, I'm spending money that like my business made on something, and then I don't have enough for our rent. So luckily, we landed a client in the time. Like all the risks you take. It's incredible. I wanted to ask too about your husband and you because you're both working in careers now.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So part of the balance that I think a lot of people don't consider when they ask you questions of like, how do you work full time and you're a mom? You're like, well, I also have a husband that is a dad. Right. Yeah. Like, and he helps raise the kids too.
Yes.
So
100%.
How's that balance? How's that structured with you guys? Because you both work a full-time job. I'm assuming it's like you both work a 9 to 5 and come home. And how are you strategizing? Who's doing the dishes and who's putting the kids down and who's waking the kids up?
No, there really is. I'm not gonna say like true equity, but it's like if someone's not doing it, they're just not. Like I've just said, I think there was a point in our marriage where I'm like, dinner's not happening. So you like, I don't know, I don't care what happens, but I literally cannot do it.
I can't do it today.
And so in those moments where it's like, well, I support you and you support me, and like we know we're like, I know you're awesome, you know I'm awesome. I want the best in like your career and your life, and so we would just see where that like it'll lean to one side and we'll kind of compensate. And so right now, actually, my husband went back to school again to get his MBA.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So it's I'm on Tuesday from 4 on, like when our nanny leaves, and like it's been tough. Like it's difficult, right? But you just kind of know what you're getting into. You expect it, and then
and you got support. You got the nanny, and you
we got help during the day, and it all balances out because it's like I think we just check in. It's just the check-ins.
Yeah.
And asking, like, just being clear, we've had to get real solid on our calendar lately. Before it was like, wait, this thing's on the family calendar, it's on your work calendar, and I don't know what's going on. So
I've had that plenty. With
yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
My wife created a new calendar.
Yeah.
That I just she's like, I know you live by Google Calendar, so I just created a new one and put it all on that.
What a lady. good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's
Well,
It's the best
I love
thing.
what you said about like equity in their relationships, because I feel like I think it's Brene Brown. She says like marriage is not 50-50. Like
I was gonna
she
bring
said
the same
like
thing up.
that is
100%.
like basically she says like that's BS. What it is like some days you're a 20 and the other person's an 80, and
Exactly.
sometimes it's days, sometimes it's weeks and months, sometimes it's even years, and then it switches or vice versa. But like marriage is like 100%, especially when you've got two, full-time either working individuals. You got two, like in my case, both my wife and I are like entrepreneurs. We both have our own businesses plus the kids. So it's like you just have to, some days you got to do it. You just got to do what you
Yeah.
got to do,
Yeah, you just gotta be like,
especially
"Hey,
if you're
man, I'm
committed to that
struggling right now."
relationship though. If you're committed, if you got married and you want to stick through it, like it's about making sacrifices, about, making it work.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Tell us about backpack marketing and how it started. Because first of all, I love the name backpack marketing.
Do you
My
really?
brother came to me once. He's like, dude, I have an idea. And the idea is business in a backpack. And this was years ago.
Nice.
He was like, I want to come up with a program that pretty much makes it so that you can carry your business anywhere in a backpack.
Dude, that
Right.
was very similar to my brain. Well, it's that, and I love being outside. Like hiking's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
And before I had kids, I backpacked a lot. Like I would take my like friends that had never been backpacking like up in the weekends and scar them for the rest of their lives.
Terrify them.
You
Take
know
them
that-
like
yeah.
like
No,
in
I
the
actually,
Uintas.
this is a slight tangent, but I took a friend one weekend up. We just hiked Lake Blanche. It's not a
Yeah,
huge,
yeah.
it's an awesome like.
It's a good
You want to
hike, though.
pretend you're backpacking and like go up
Yes.
there and
Yeah.
pitch a tent and
Maybe see a moose.
yes, saw moose, totally saw moose. And anyway, we woke up in the middle of the night to a helicopter like hovering over our tent, like blowing the tent, like and she was like, "What is happening?"
going on?
And this helicopter did not see us. It was search and rescue. And they were literally like lowering down on our tent. And this guy
Oh my
that's on the
gosh.
ground is like kind of helping guide he's got these flashy,
Helicopter or something?
he's trying to guide this helicopter to where these people are and doesn't see us. And then suddenly the light shines on our tent and he's like, "Get out of the tent." Like he's
That's
screaming.
crazy.
It was wild. So I've truly scarred some people.
That's
doing
awesome though.
Oh my
And
God.
Lake Blanche is gorgeous.
Yeah, it was amazing. Now I'm like, you
Sounds
loved it. I'm like,
incredible.
you loved it. Yeah. But just had so many good experiences backpacking with my dad growing up. I was a backpacking guide after my freshman year of college for like little kids.
Oh my
that's
gosh,
cool.
that would be so
It
fun.
was
Yeah, it'd
horrible,
be super
but
fun.
it was great.
I mean, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess it depends on what.
Yeah, they'd
what's
be
your bread and
miserable.
butter.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
miserable. And so I was kind of miserable.
I did a
but-
backpacking trip with all my cousins and uncle, and my uncle who guided us through the Highline Trail probably felt like he was just managing a bunch of little kids because
Yeah.
it was
It's
a lot of
it's
our
over
first
100.
time.
Isn't it 100 miles?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 100
That's
miles,
intense.
but it
Yeah.
was like 7 days. But yeah,
Yeah.
Whew,
What's
still,
what's
though.
your
Really
what's
fun.
your favorite hike here locally that you like to do often, and then what's like your favorite you've ever done?
Ooh, man, that's a
Even
tough
not
one.
even outside of Utah.
That's a really tough
and
one.
don't worry, it can change later on. We're not holding you.
I know.
This
I,
is
I'll just say
doctrine.
for both, I really love the hiking Ben Lomond in the fall.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love Ben Lomond.
in the fall is actually so.
Ben
pretty.
Lomond is
it's
beautiful.
great.
Once you hit the saddle,
It's so good.
it just is a
Yeah,
whole
you
new
run
world.
that. You used to
Oh,
run that quite
it's
often.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I love
It's
that.
and I
area.
just it's close. I love how
Yeah.
we just have some really sweet hikes that are close.
We need to not tell people where Ben Lomond is, though.
It's not.
Yeah.
I made it up.
It's
Yeah, I made it
the
up.
other Ben Lomond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and where
yeah.
is that? Like,
Like
Scotland
or something? Yeah, that one. There's not one
That's
in
the one
Ogden
I
that's
did.
amazing.
Yes. But yeah, I was really trying to think of a name that resonated with me, that you can live with, right? That you can be like, yeah, that's cool. I can dig that, and I can like, for me, like brand is brand strategy and brand messaging is kind of like my bread and butter, and so I really wanted to be able to speak to the story and have it be meaningful. And I think with a lot of agencies, like you guys have a sweet brand, but there's a lot that just gets so lost. It's like, oh yeah, another
Doesn't
one
really
of
mean.
these.
Oh,
it.
we're
Doesn't
guilty
really
of that.
mean
With
anything.
some,
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want mine to be like, oh, weird, backpack. What does it mean? Like, why? And the brand, even just like the visual identity is a little bit different. I don't know. The color scheme's a little odd, like unexpected in some ways. And so I really wanted something that can just make my own, you know, and really build the brand around that. So
That's cool. And what, like, going from backpack now to like a career as like a marketing director, how and why make that transition?
Whew, yeah, that was a tough one. I actually I was not looking for a job. It was a client that I was kind of like dating for like 5 months. We'd get on a call and something was going on. They were merging with a company or purchasing a company. All this stuff was going on. And eventually he just said, you know what? I got to hire someone. The guy we have is it's not working out. And so I need to hire somebody. And so I said, okay, sounds great. Here's a couple names. And I said, but in the meantime, I know you're hiring for web copy. Like I do a lot of web copy, but this is kind of the scope of like what. So if you need someone to fill in or just some tasks or help with strategy, whatever, I'm happy to do that. Like more fractional CMO work. He was like, actually, let's go to lunch. And so
that's how it always happens. That's how we started this. It's a lunch, man.
Yeah, it was stealthy. But the thing that was interesting about it is you just just never know like the turns that are in, like where life's gonna take you, and when you feel that intuition.
Yeah.
Because I kept bumping against the ceiling in my business where I could not let go. Like I'm like I know what I'm supposed to do to grow this, and I can't let go because I'm not done learning. Like I felt like I either needed to get someone on the team who would drive business development, but like I would, when I'm sure you guys are the same. When I'm there to close a deal, it closes. Mm-hmm. When someone else does, they don't have that like founder juice.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah. They just don't have the passion, and you can't expect somebody else to have the same passion. You just can't. Yeah. Like not everybody has that.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And I found some amazing people. I had some awesome people on my team, and they were willing too. And I just think because I started,
pay them though too.
Yeah,
and that's scary.
Yeah. Yes. Well, when I started my business when I was 26, so I was kind of a rookie. I was like, well, I know I'm good at these things, and so I'm going to.
If you were a rookie, then we were like, newborns then.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to lean into what I'm good at, and I'm going to, see how it goes. And it just kept, I think if you do a good job, you get more work. You do a good job, you get more work. And so then I'd have people come, like I had a criminal defense attorney reach out and say, hey, we need this. Like, we need SEO. I'm like, yep, I know all about that.
And we've been there.
Yeah, totally. You're like, yes, the answer is yes, and I'll figure it out. And so everything I've learned has just been by saying yes.
By saying yes. How did you find your first customers?
So it was a gift. It was like I was the corporate world was not working for me. It was like it was 2016. So it was like your butt's in a seat, 8
you're in
to 5,
an office,
or if you do part time, you can only make this much an hour. Like I was suddenly like my value had gone down for no reason, just because of corporate policies. So I had someone who I worked with at that company who had left and said, hey, there's a startup and they need a marketing director. You'd be awesome for it. So I started my business with one solid ongoing client, and that quickly turned into 2 solid. So I had this cushion that made it feel a little less scary.
For sure.
And just kept, it was honestly a lot of word of mouth for like the first year, because I had enough to survive and keep me going through like early motherhood and stuff. And then I would just kind of just little
network.
at a time. Yeah.
Few customers here and there. Yeah. So your business was the business that I was terrified to start, because I worked at KSL.com and I saw a rep lose his one big customer. Right. And he was like, I have to like change my whole life. My wife is going to have to change her budget, all these things. And I thought to myself,
smart, by the way.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, I was like, I don't want to just get a big customer, because if I do that, I'm terrified they'll cancel. So we built our business on the mindset of like small retainers,
and lots of them.
Was good, but also bad, because when you are a small retainer agency, like the hardest payment to get is $500 a month. You're like following up with your customer. Hey, are you going to pay your invoice? Are you going to pay your invoice?
For $500. Yeah.
Where your $40,000 a month customer is like, hey, bill me. Thanks. Bye. And so it's an interesting dichotomy of like, what kind of business do you want to start? And did you have those fears because you were in early motherhood? You had 2 customers at the time, but they were definitely covering what you needed.
Yeah, I think I was too naive to like really think about it, honestly, because I knew that this company like needed my help to get, because they were brand new. So, and they had funding. And so I guess I didn't think about it for like a year. And then because I was honestly that settled and it was that good. But I did like, they ended up not working out a couple of years in. And so, yeah, that was like, okay, whew. But by that point I had enough built up. So I should have thought about it. I definitely should have, but somehow, man, the universe just delivered for sure when I needed it.
It does. I think, have you ever read the book The Alchemist?
Yeah, it's a good one.
And how it talks about pretty much as long as you're giving your best effort, like the universe finds ways
That
to
is
like,
so,
support
it's
you.
so true
Yeah.
though too. Like
It
so true.
feels that way. It's felt that way in my life. It seems like it's been that way in so many others.
Yeah, and so transitioning into this new role, I sat down to lunch with this guy and I had been like, man, I feel like I had FOMO on like my marketing career that could have been. I was like, I want to get into a CRM, like just get my hands in there, you know?
Yeah, just tear apart the data.
I like, there's, and even just weird things like, because I'd been so pigeonholed into, which is great, like brand, website, copy, messaging, anything that touches that space, that the data, like I was just lacking. And I was like, I know like how important this is, and I'm getting help when it's needed for that stuff, but I'm hungry for it. And so it made me realize like, I'm a marketing director. Like I'm a project managing, I want to piece this all together, but I have this really solid foundation of messaging and which really drives everything. Like for it, that my perspective is if you're not saying the right things to the right people, if it's not resonating, if it's not hitting the right pain points, like what are you doing?
I feel like it is the foundation of everything. We were just at Silicon Slopes. I don't know if you went or attended,
No, now I just
but
switched
that's
on.
all right. Well, like Gary V, he spoke. Gary Vaynerchuk spoke, and one of his quotes was, he's like, basically communication is everything, basically, and it's the foundation of everything, and that starts with written and spoken, right?
And it's amazing to me how many times I've seen, if you can find someone who can write in a voice that people like to read, it's like, oh, suddenly I like you. Suddenly we can talk, you know? But if you can't feel that, like the cadence and the rhythm of like how you actually talk to a person, they're out. They're like, oh, this is like kind of cold. This is, you know. And so I've tested both, like to see the difference. If I write some, or even, and that's why I'm like, I'm a tough Chat GPT critic and AI critic. I really am.
We need to talk about that. We were talking about AI, and you said you're a big critic of ChatGPT. I'm a big fan of ChatGPT.
I know, we probably have different skill sets, I'm
We're a
guessing.
very huge fan of it.
I'm also, I will say I'm a fan to a point, right? Like I use it. It's an incredible like search engine. Like goodbye Google. Like it's not Google's, you know, too elementary now, because ChatGPT I can get lists of the stuff I'm looking for, right? However, there's like this, you know, I'm trying to think of my own podcast name right now, right? And so I'm like, man, I just want to like brainstorm, like throw some stuff at me. All of it was absolute trash, you know, like right, and that's what you expect. So it's still, I think it's an amazing tool. I love it. But there are a couple people that I've had lots of interactions with and back and forth with who it's like, that's the end all. Like the thing that I'm going to use is the output that I get from ChatGPT. So I'm like, oh, no. Oh, that is the productivity there is not, I mean, it's not there.
And
right?
It's obvious.
Yes.
Right.
And so it's like, well, you just got to keep training it. You just got to keep feeding it and shaping it. And I'm like, that takes me 10 times as long. Right. So I think still, if you have someone who's a solid writer, or, you know, whatever you're creating, you have someone who's solid at the skill, and they can look at it and say, this is good or this is not good, then it's amazing. But to just take it at face value. Oh, and of course we're not taking it at face value, but even to try to coach it up, it's like an efficiency issue for me.
Yeah. Well, I think also websites, we build a lot of websites, and people will be like, I really like this website. And we ask why, and they can't explain it, when at the end of the day, it's the voice. It's the messaging from the site, and they don't understand that. or it's the photos, or it's the video
it's
on
the
the site,
content,
right?
yeah.
But like voice on a site can mean so much compared to if you just threw up ChatGPT content on a site. And for example, I just built a website last night with an AI builder where you put in information and it'll build you the website. It'll put in written content, but it's not going to give you brand identity. It's not going to make you unique. You have to go in and manually do those things.
100%.
And I think, yeah, that messaging and voice plays such a big role in
for
why
sure.
people engage.
Well, I feel like ChatGPT definitely for people that I feel like utilize it. Hopefully, it speeds things up. But at the bare minimum, I think we've noticed, at least with like us personally, and with other people that are like using it heavily, it's taking like people that were more or less maybe had other kind of skills, were mediocre at one thing, and it help them more or less come up to more or less the standard level, right? And then for anyone past the standard level, if you're an expert, hopefully it helps make you faster. If it's moving slower for you, then you probably got a problem,
Right.
with it.
And I think it's a unique like situation for me, because 90% of people will use ChatGPT and be like, this is changing, like cover
Yeah.
letter done,
Yeah.
5 seconds, like
Yeah.
having the bones of that thing, so you're not just sitting there staring at a blank screen. That's everything, and I love that. I love that for people. I think it's just for my particular, like in my
You're
skill
a
set,
copywriter.
I'm like,
Yeah, you are a writer.
whew, and so I've had like people have told me like, hey, you should be using this, or like, I'm like, I get that, like, and I will, but to a point, like,
Yeah.
you have to. There's this intuition that we have as human beings that AI can't replicate, and physical, like, can't replicate. I know there's gonna be more iterations. We're in the baby stages. It'll just become more and more complicated and advanced. I will love to see it. I will love to see that. But even when it's at its most, like the height, where I guess it'll never be at its height, but it'll just keep developing and developing, that humans just have something that, that empathy, and to know in that moment, I'm talking to you, what you need to hear from me. Mm-hmm. That's just an unspoken thing that I am curious to see how AI like figures that out. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm fascinated.
Well, it's
Totally.
the thing that
Yeah.
makes us human, right? Like, honestly, innately human. Like, the reason why we're different from more or less apes per se is the fact that we actually can create and have that like imagination and those things that more or less other beings don't have.
Totally.
Right?
But what
And-
people don't know is this entire podcast is actually just AI.
I'm not here.
the whole thing
all
is
fake.
AI. This is all fake.
No, yeah, I think my thought is I wouldn't take therapy through ChatGPT, right?
Exactly.
I wouldn't want ChatGPT to be my therapist and give me feedback. Why? Because I need empathy, I need emotion,
Right.
I need quality feedback from someone who understands.
Who's
and-
been,
yeah,
who
who's
gets
been
the
there, gets it.
the actual experience. Yeah.
And I also wouldn't let ChatGPT diagnose me or with a disease. I might let it write like a law agreement.
Sure.
You know,
100%.
But I wouldn't.
100%.
But we have a content writer and we write a lot of blogs, and we use ChatGPT not to write our blogs, but to get basis points to then expand. And it saves our content writer a ton of time to be able to get those basis points and then expand.
Brilliant.
So,
I have a hobby job at night. I write for an e-commerce brand that is like a really cool, it's like a really awesome bounce house. They're beautiful bounce houses.
really, oh, I've seen these. These are
Yeah.
they're like high quality,
Yeah.
high end bounce houses.
Yeah. And so I couldn't give it up. I'm like, it's too fun. It's so me. Like, it's the phase of life I'm in. I have that voice. Like, I can talk to that person so well. And so I've definitely, like, I'll start the blog depending, in ChatGPT, just get my brain going, and I'll try to see if I can use anything that's in there. And I'm like, man, if one of my friends said that to me, I would be like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Ew, like,
Like, that
ew.
just doesn't sound right.
That's giving me an ick for sure. And so to be able to gauge that and say, that's not something you say normal, like maybe in theory, like I can understand it, but that's like a weird thing to say, especially in a voice that's like, it's like kind of there's like a sweetness to it, but like empathy, you know, how a mom would like talk to another mom
Yeah.
or trying to help out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I
So-
feel like ChatGPT gets lazy too. Like I think AI will slowly get lazy. It'll be like,
like,
I don't
"This
want to
is too
fully
hard."
complete this.
Well, and the problem is there's only so much information it currently has, right? Like I know there was a ton of examples of people using it to write more or less like whether it be contracts or whether it be like
something law abiding.
Yeah, whatever it is, and it was referencing case law that didn't even exist. So like some of that stuff's like super mission critical, right? You got to make sure that it's actually like accurate. And so I think always, you know, I think it's always going to need a human element of checking
Yeah.
before
On
before
that,
publishing.
like that same note, like my marketing team is 2 people right now. So I am
There's only so
all
much 2
about,
people can
right?
do.
Like I am
Yeah.
all about efficiency. So
Yeah.
if it's truly efficient for the goal in mind, like I'm there. So I'm not being critical also because I've had people like, like you're just stuck in your ways. I'm like, no, I swear to you, I
Like,
want
trying to use
my life
this.
to be easier.
Yes, yeah, I don't want it to be harder. I'm not trying to make my life
Yeah,
harder.
yeah.
But so with 2 people on your marketing team, Catherine, like how we had mentioned earlier, like building a marketing team more or less from scratch, building all these processes, all these more or less the strategy from a data and design perspective. What does that look like building it from nothing?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm actually really lucky with this job because I get to draw on my experience from my own consulting business because what this Impact Utah is a consulting business specifically for manufacturers, and so
What kind of manufacturers?
anything, and if you make a product in Utah, and now they've expanded it, so it's actually a nonprofit. So they get paid, or we get paid for our services, but we can't profit, but we get grants from the state to help these companies. Every state actually has a center called the MEP. It's a Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and the Department of Commerce gives those centers money so that you can help
distribute it.
the manufacturers can
Oh, okay.
get support.
So how do you market for a business like that?
Exactly.
Like, and
How-
you said
yeah.
before this, you said you walked into like nothing, right?
Yeah.
There was nothing there, no data.
Yeah, I think it was because the focus was, well, we're creating brand awareness, and I'm like, well, that's nice. That's like a good chunk, like that's important, but you know, you gotta leads in the door is what we're after here, and so it's not like it's not like e-commerce. You can't just run
Yeah.
ads and like people will start coming to your site.
Because who's your ideal avatar that you're targeting?
Like a COO,
CEO
of a manufacturing.
company.
Yeah.
They're not even on LinkedIn. I'm just kidding.
Seriously.
Just kidding. I mean, they are, but a lot of it's just, it just depends. It's generational because there are younger, guys that are in manufacturing that want, but it's like they don't have the education. Like they don't know what to do. Like marketing's just so foreign, and so manufacturers, it seems historically, just have really bad track record with marketing. They're not good at marketing. And so to then market to them is definitely a challenge. So it's old. Some of it's real old school, right? It's like, how can I get a really sick swag box in their hands so I can look them in the eye, and tell them how awesome we are? Like that is the goal. So we definitely will be running awareness campaign. Like we want those people to see us in other ways. Like we want them to be reminded, but when I came in, there were definitely like, I think there was intentions to run billboards, but they were all over the place. It wasn't like in consistent areas where with billboards, you want people to pass the same thing.
It's the whole thing. The Blip billboard guy, he's like he's the CEO of Blip, but like our best campaigns are multi-channel, right? Like it's
Exactly.
like the people that stay with us longest have a multi-channel approach, and billboards is just one of those things.
Yeah, I think he even referenced the worst company alive, McDonald's, and how they would run out of home marketing in conjunction with online paid, and saw this massive increase compared to just running out of home or just running paid.
Absolutely.
But doing both together, like, saw a big spike. So do you guys have billboards in any prominent locations?
So
Are you working on that?
I'm about a month in officially as like an employee. I was doing like contract work over the summer as I was trying to transition. And so the big issue is you can think about all that stuff, but when you go back to the foundation of what's there, what are the, like, I think people don't realize how much the offer is, like, it's directly tied to the marketing. If you boil down and it's like the offer's confusing, there's too much. What are we focusing on here? You know?
Yeah. And what is your guys' offer?
Yeah. So it's a lot of training. Like, it's even hard for me to be like, here's what we do, but it's manufacturing consulting. So it's either it's transformations. So we actually go in, feet on the ground, and do the work to make it more efficient, increase capacity, and help them profit more ultimately. That's one part, and the other part is trainings. But there's like 60 to 100 different trainings. So how do I speak to that on a website? Like, I don't think we need to speak to, like, we need to speak to the problems that are, those are facing, and not the individual things. So it's a lot of working through that, because ultimately these ads are going to lead them somewhere that's going to, confuse the heck out of them, right? And so the website too, right? Everything's going to come back to a landing page or a website, and if it's not communicating clearly, we're just putting, like, you guys know, putting money down the drain. So
is that like your focus right now? Is I'm trying to rewrite the content for the website so the messaging is
we're completely rebuilding it right now and we actually have a for-profit version of this with similar products so we're launching another brand as well. So in about 3 months, we're hoping to have 2 large websites built. We will see how it goes.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot. But
so how do you
it's fun.
approach rewriting a brand's, like, offer and structure? Because for us, I think about Scroll, and we have had our same website now for about 18 months.
Yeah.
A year.
About a year.
And and it looks great. I actually like a lot of the messaging on there, but I really want to find a way, and Dan and I were talking about this the other day, like, how do we simplify our messaging to the point where, like, somebody, because our name is Scroll, somebody just gets on, it's like, hi, here's who we are, here's what we do.
Here's why you would pick me.
Yeah, like, here's why you pick us. So
yeah.
how do you go about, and see, I probably even went through that structure in a bad way or a poor way. Like, how would you structure coming to the table if we were to say, like, hey, we just want to rewrite our homepage content? Like, what questions would you ask?
Yeah, I
That's
would,
very long-winded.
even if I didn't do like a brand strategy session with you, you kind of have to go through a mini version of that to rewrite a website. So some of the questions are around, what are your differentiators? You guys have clear differentiators, in my opinion, like the cost, how you do it, how you outsource, so how clear is the value that you're providing your client? How clearly displayed is that right away? So you're like, ooh, okay, I got to learn what that looks like. So it's figuring out the clarity. Can I say what I do in a sentence? Can I speak to the problem that you're facing, and can I solve it for you? And and is the solution focused on our unique like value prop, and how do we put that all together in like this really concise little word package?
Yeah. That has been it's so much more difficult than I think people make it seem.
Yeah. And nobody's able to wrap their head around that. Even clients that we work with for a very long time. Like, I think it really is the foundation. It comes down to how you're communicating, and there's no reason to jump into paid advertising or jump into the design or anything until you've solidified that offer, you've solidified who you're talking to, and then
Why you matter, why any of it matters.
Yeah, and why, like, and even beyond that, is that avatar even going to respond to it? I think there's so many times we talk to, like, our customers and just you hear about it in general, like, have really no idea if it's, like, actually working. They don't really talk to their client about, like, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and you're missing out on so much if you don't.
Part of that process is definitely really digging deep and saying, why do they care? Like, why does this person I'm trying to sell to, why should they care? And the other part is when I'm sitting there in that like thought bubble of how do I make this concise, especially when I'm thinking about purpose and how do I communicate someone's purpose, is like I don't know if you've heard like the 6 layers of why, or I don't know the exact term for it, but you say, well, why am I doing this? And you answer that question. And you say, well, why does that matter? Okay. And you answer that. Okay, well, why does that matter? And it's like a little kid asking you,
over and over. Why?
You ask it to yourself, and then you finally get to this point that with impact, it's like, well, we're improving a lot of people's lives. It doesn't, it's like, I'm sure Simon Sinek, why everyone's heard.
Yeah.
But it really is when you can clarify that the core of that, there's kind of these stems that come out that make everything else a little clearer. So, yeah.
I really like that. That's giving me a lot of thoughts for our
Please
our
let me
next
know how it
draft of our
goes.
website. But now what I'm excited for is to see Impact Utah's website in a few months to see the type of content that you wrote.
And
you
yeah,
guys have
I'm
been
excited.
working on.
Right now our website is built in GoDaddy in code.
Oh.
It hurts me.
Yeah, that hurts me too. That hurts me
so
right
bad.
here.
I have no access to it. It's like
Yeah.
it's brutal. I just don't even. I'm
And
like,
that's so
"Don't."
it's like
It is.
everybody we deal with that before they come to us is usually in a situation like that.
Yeah, and I know it was.
So.
I've heard it was like a quick turnaround. Oh shoot, we got to get this up, and that someone knew a guy, and whatever.
Yeah, everyone knows
But
a
I'm
guy.
like, we're building on Webflow. It's gonna look freaking awesome, and
That's awesome.
I'm excited about it. It's just getting it done.
Do you build on Webflow, or do you have people that are going to do it?
Yeah. So Backpack, we've built a number of Webflow websites, but we didn't. It's interesting because we love Webflow, but I feel like Webflow is like the go-to in like the tech space,
Yes.
and
The tech and SaaS
SaaS
space
goes that way.
Yeah.
But I'm like, the design functionality is just so good that if someone is willing to pay for that and like wants that premium experience, so we love Webflow.
Yeah,
for
and
that.
wants the high learning curve that comes
for
with
sure.
with that stuff.
For sure.
Well, Catherine, I think in closing, we're getting close to wrapping up. I think a couple of questions to maybe like add at the end. We've always asked guests like tips, like hit us with your quick tips, basically. So one of my questions would be like somebody that wants to transition into marketing. What would you suggest they either study, read, or like execute to like put them on that path?
Yeah, I think especially, and I guess because you can do a lot of different things, but I'll speak to being like a marketing director. If you want to lead a team in marketing, get one thing that you lean into, something you're really good at, and be really good at that thing. But in the meantime, understand how everything else connects to that thing. Because in marketing, everything impacts everything else, whether we see it or not.
Yeah.
So it's kind of specificity in one thing, and then openness to everything else. Tell me about what you do. Help me understand, and then ask connecting questions. So how does this impact this, and how does this impact this? And I think you need to look deep inside. Like, you need to get to know yourself well. I actually took a test in April with a bunch of other female founders I went on this retreat with, and it came back and said, "Oh, well, you're a trailblazer," and I wasn't.
Well,
And
backpack marketing trailblazer.
it hurt
That's
me.
so cool.
It hurt me. I was like, I'm not the founder. Like, I'm not the person. And it was hard. I bullied myself, like, straight up. It said I'm a facilitator. And I'm like, I totally am. And that is okay, because I make it happen. Like, I make all of it happen, and I make everyone play nice together. And that's a really valuable skill.
It's a huge skill.
So
Yeah,
it is a
especially when you.
trailblazer.
Yeah,
I guess. But it was like, I'm not the one that's going to take the risk and be like, we're doing this thing.
Well, especially when you lead a team, like like a leader that can like more or less calm and
True.
lead. There's no leader at all. I just finished Band of Brothers, like for probably the 3rd time. It's like one of my favorite series. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's
Yeah,
a great
really
series. But there, Lipton, who is in there, eventually he becomes Lieutenant Lipton, but he doesn't see himself. It's like he had that same experience you just did of like not understanding that he was the one that was keeping all of the men calm on the front line where they were literally getting bombed and shelled for like weeks on end in freezing cold, had little to no protection. And at the very end, like they give him a battlefield commission. And he asks like, well, what are you doing that for? And he doesn't even realize that they're talking about him. And he's like, you are the one that kept everybody calm, and we were able to win and take the town because you kept everybody calm and kept everybody going.
See, that sounds like
So,
me. That
yeah.
sounds more like, but I've learned that there are different kinds of leaders, right? They're all valuable in different ways. And so I have friends that are trailblazers for sure. And I'm like, you go, girl. Tell me how I can help you. Tell me how we can make this happen, right?
Yeah.
And I've had to learn to settle into that and be like, because I'm also an achiever. So I see people who are achieving. I'm like, I got to be like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that's not me. I am the executor, you know? Like, not that I'm not a visionary in some ways, but I thrive as an executor, like for someone else. And I'm stoked about it. Like, tell me an idea you have. Let's tackle it. Let's do it. And here's how we're going to do it. And then I can absolutely lead the team to do it. But there's a difference there that I've noticed in myself. So I'd say to really know yourself and know where you thrive, because marketing is broad, right? It's vast and it has a lot of different skill sets are needed. So yeah, start there too. Like, list out what your strengths are and figure out where they apply to.
And it sounds like that is applicable to someone kind of debating if they'd rather be an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, right?
Sure.
An entrepreneur could be more a trailblazer, where an entrepreneur could be more somebody who executes. But those roles could also be reversed very easily,
100%.
where the entrepreneur is an executioner and the entrepreneur is the person trailblazing.
Yeah, because I've realized too that I'm also a good leader. Like I would love, like, CMO is like, that just feels like the right place for me. I'd love a huge team that I can lead to do. But then having that new idea and being so stoked on that idea that I just tackle it to the ground, maybe that'll come, right? And it just, I haven't had that thing yet. So, but Backpack gave me a sense for, where I fall
like.
in that. And I could do it, right? But I wouldn't wake up feeling with a fire under me every day, which is really interesting, right?
Yeah, that is interesting, because I would say that I'm more of a like idea.
See, and I love people like you. I'm like, yes, I love it too. Let's do it.
And I can't do that idea alone, and I've had to recognize that about myself. Like, if I attempt to do it alone, I'll get distracted and something will happen, and I'll get lost, and search and rescue will come looking for me.
Bringing it full
And
circle.
land on your tent.
Right, exactly. But that's why, like, Dan and I are such good partners, because there are different types of leaders, right? Like, if we were both the same type of leader, then that would be a bad thing. It would mean one of us would have to, like, find a way out of the business. But luckily, we're different in the way we lead, and it's been really beneficial.
We work well
That's
together, and I'm
awesome.
very much more of the executor.
And if and when I go back full time into growing an agency or doing something different, I know what I need. Like, I know I need a Shane. Like, I know I need someone that can balance me out. So I think it's brilliant you guys started together.
Yeah,
It's
it's
awesome.
yin and yang. It's good.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Catherine,
good.
thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining
it's been
us
so
today. It's
good.
been super fun.
This
We're so glad
is
to have you
awesome.
on.
And we didn't even get to talk about Utah, but Utah's awesome.
Utah's freaking awesome.
Yeah,
I will
Utah
never
is
move.
freaking
Mountains
awesome.
forever.
Mountains forever. And right now they are
beaches.
beautiful.
Yeah, Utah's
my
just
gosh.
popping off. Like,
It's
A
popping
light
off.
snow dusting.
well, yes. I mean, I'm telling you, when it rains and snows as much as it did, this is like 100-year winter event that we had last year, and we've got the most epic, probably 100-year fall this year.
Yeah, I
So,
could not believe how green it was in August. I was like, what?
Yeah, it was
been
such an amazing
such an
year.
epic year.
So good.
But Catherine, thank you so much for coming on. I
you.
think this is very insightful for a lot of people listening, interested in marketing, interested in entrepreneurship, interested in understanding how they can get into a director of marketing role. So this has been really insightful.
Thanks, Catherine. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, you guys.